Greetings and welcome to Mount Olympus. I am Hercules Invictus, and today on Theosophia, Esoteric Studies, I am proud to bring you Setna Khamuast of Khemet, who will be teaching us about Egyptian ritual magic. Greetings and welcome, Setna.
Ujat Seneb, which is life, health, and prosperity. And hello. Also, it was called first occasion, is how the Egyptians said hello. So, hello, first occasion.
Ditto.
I want to say that we are almost at the end of the Feast of Bast, which is why my cat was acting up. That was a feast that began on May 7th, which oddly is his birthday. I believe he was a gift from Bast. And it ends at dawn at the summer solstice, in which time we will do the great ritual called the lighting of the sun in a way, and it's also the ritual of Ra. At dawn, we bring a barge, an Egyptian barge, to the water. I haven't done this in Savannah yet, so I'm kind of excited. And we have a small statue of Ra that will go. I don't know if you can see that up close. I get that like that. A statue of Ra that will go onto the barge. I have a larger paper mache one because this, once the barge is gone, it's gone. But it's an offering to the god Ra. And we start the ritual always. And because it has Bast on it, you can see that the goddess Bast is there. This is a sistrum. I think they also have in Greece, in Greece also Hercules. But this is a rattle that we started the rituals with to bring forth the I guess the connection you'd want to say between the gods, the Neteru in my case, in your case the Olympians, and and the human, the Felahim, the people of Egypt. So we would do that, and the ritual would go in that way. It's a very early ancient ritual. The solar ritual, the Egyptians' first gods are the solar gods. Yours are mighty on Mount Olympus, and ours come from a place called Kenti Amenti, which is our heaven, as it were, or our Olympus. They started with the energy of the creation of the universe, of course, and so that with us is Ptah, Ptah. I can show you a statue of him. I have him somewhere hidden. um, well, I've got all my. You don't can't see them, but I have my entire pantheon sitting watching me. This is quite a celestial audience tonight
I'm
because
on.
I'm in front of my ritual. I'm in front of my altar, and we are working with also the divine cackler. That is Geb. He is the person that laid the egg that became the earth. It is in Egypt. Mother Nature is Father Nature. The earth is a male, and the sky is Nuit, and she is the mother. But the mother and the father are kind of they switched roles in Egypt because in Egypt people kneaded bread with their feet and wine, eggs with their hands. So you all had purple hands. Kind of interesting. So we begin the ritual, and as I said, we use the system, and they will say, "Blessings be unto you in the name of the Niteru, the high Niteru." A high priest like myself will go to the individual people. This is a rather large ankh made, by the way, by a Greek priestess. Um, I have to think of her name was the charioteer, so you can tell me. Um, it starts with a P, I think, doesn't it? In Greek, charioteer. Dactetes was her name.
I,
Dactetes.
I'm drawing a blank. The
Dactetes was her name. And she said because that was the card she pulled in the tarot, which was the charioteer. So she was Dactetes. And she made this. It's made of bronze. It's also, you can't really hear it, but it's also like a tuning fork. And it puts a very high vibration. And so I use this, which is disappearing, which is really interesting. I use my disappearing Ankh trick. I use the Ankh and of course my sistrum, and we'll make pronouncements of the particular gods and goddesses that we'll be using tonight. We would say that we are again holding court for the goddess Bast, Uvasti. They would say Dwa, DWA, Basta, B-A-S-T-A, Basta, or Ubasti, U-B-A-S-T-I. And the people would chant, Dwa Ubasti, Dwa Ubasti. And priest or priestess would be ringing the sistrum to summon the deity. And then a priestess would walk out, and she's wearing a long white robe. Usually there's a leopard skin. Unfortunately, back in the day, they didn't have PETA, so it was real leopard skin. And she would be carrying a sistrum. And in a basket, she would also be carrying kittens. Bast is the goddess of fertility. She was the goddess of, how will I say her? She was the protectress of those who could not fight for themselves. The old song, Bless the Beast and the Children,
Hmm.
for in this world they have no choice, they have no voice. That's part of an ancient Egyptian papyrus. Did you know that?
I did not, but now I do.
Light their way, be their guardian angel on high, et cetera, et cetera. But it's there, she comes and she would protect the children. And we had an oil that I actually have here somewhere. Um, in my chalice, I have an oil. And we would bless with the oil the head of a cat or a dog or a goat or a child or someone who was a little infirm, because we always felt that they were also helpless. And Bast is the champion of the helpless. And they would be blessed in her name. And also at this time, between what we have as May to, I guess, June 21st, the solstice, children's names were given. So they would be also blessed in the name of the cat because she was the mama cat. She was the one of motherhood. And she was also blessing them in the name of her mother, who is Isis, Isis Sotis. Sotis is the North Star, the dog star. I'm sorry, the dog star. It's the planet, it's Sirius. And she would come, and they say that she would descend from Sirius, and then she would go with her daughter, her sister, and her daughter. Her sister is Nephthys, who's the goddess of secrets. And they would stand on either side of Bast. A priest would come with the oil. Someone would be working with the sistrum and the ankh to bless, like the Christians have, like a communion or a confirmation. And these things would be going on for people would be lining up for days to have this oil and this blessing. And it took 21 days because there was so many people. It came from all over, not only Egypt, but Greece, Mesopotamia, as far away as Morocco to have this blessing. And this was kind of cool, I think.
Yeah, it is. It is. The world was a very cosmopolitan place, especially around the Mediterranean in antiquity. And even though these cultures were very distinct and very powerful, each in their own right, they also interacted very well together.
I agree. Now, people are going to ask me, Michael or Setna Khamuast, that's who I am tonight. What's in that oil? And um, up until about, I guess, 200 years ago, we didn't know. Balzoni, who's an early archaeologist, well, he's an interesting man. He was a strong man in the circus. And he got tired of doing that because you know how you muscle builders are. And he got tired of doing that all the time. So he married one of the acrobat girls and they became archaeologists. Actually, they became tomb robbers, to be honest with you. And he was a brilliant guy. He found many, many temples. The temple of um, Seti the Great. He was, oh my, totally upstairs. Um, Abydos, which is Osiris. But he also dug into a lot of tombs and things. But he's the one that discovered this in the ruins of the temple of the city of Bubastis. He found remnants of what looked like, glop, because it was thousands of years old, congealed glop. And when they put olive oil on it, they realized that's what it was made out of. It opened up and they were able to analyze it. But only, I think, last century, in the 20th century, they were able to better analyze it. And they know that it had in it lotus seeds. It had the and it was blue and white lotus. Blue lotus is a narcotic, believe it or not.
Mhm.
To inhale it would get you very high. I've never seen one, so I really wouldn't know. But they also had catnip, which we didn't know they even had, and also rose petals. Um, Let me get this right: cedar and cypress, Egyptian musk, which comes from an Egyptian musk deer, As an animal person, I'm not happy about that, but that's what there was there. Rose water, which they got from India, believe it or not, and some of the water from the Nile. And there's also an ingredient that we can't figure out what it is. Um, I believe it's a aromatic oil because that's what's been. They don't know which one though. Maybe it's from an extinct plant. But the Egyptians used this oil, and it was on millions of people and millions of cats. So no wonder it's probably not around anymore. I mean, they had a bear. They used to make Egyptian kohl, the eyeliner, out of this grease from a bear, and that bear is extinct. So there's a lot of women walking around with extinct bear eyeliner on, which is pretty wild. But so there would be incense. The Egyptians used most often frankincense in their rituals. They used something called kufi also. Kufi is a mixture of frankincense, myrrh, and various different other spicy aromatic oils and coals and resins. Some of them being cypress, cedar, um, and there is a red rose, particular rose, an Egyptian rose, which is a different one. Like Woody Allen's the red rose of the blue rose of Cairo, but it's a red rose. There's no such thing. And they had all these things that they put in the incense. They also used camphor, which we know is purifying and also mothballs, but it worked very well to repel negative energy. Even now, many people like myself that are pagan use camphor, and I know people that practice Santeria and other African ritual ceremonies also use camphor to chase away negativity, and also very fine, very coarse ground salt, kosher salt or what have you, or they grind up selenite, which is actually salt anyway, to send the energy away. Chants would be made. Um, there were no animal sacrifices in this particular ritual. As flowers were brought in, fruit, pomegranates, dates, palms, coconut. They actually used coconuts. We found the husks of coconuts in some of the tombs, and some of the temple. Just so, but they must have eaten the meat of the coconut. Well, the pieces were there, and there were many other things too. They did eat bugs. We found in some of the tombs and some of the temples the carcasses or what's left of locusts. Locusts. The big grasshoppers.
Mhm.
Not the cicada. People in this country also call cicadas locusts, and they're not. They're a different animal entirely. So that was done. And then at the end of this, which would stop at that dawn, the statue of Bast was returned to her space in the temple. The great doors would be opened up. The statue of Ra would be brought to the barge with usually 9 or 10 priests and priestesses, and priestesses would be shaking the sistrum. There would be chants and incense. It's actually quite beautiful. And they would take the barge and walk it into the water and set it
Is,
in.
is there a myth that goes along with this ceremony?
That it's a creation ceremony. The sun ceremony is a creation ceremony. They say that the disk was created um, by itself. The sun came itself, and that Ra rose from the Nile, which is why we put the barge in the Nile, on top of a blue lotus blossom. And he just sort of created himself. Although other traditions say that his mother is Shu and Tefnut,
Mhm.
or actually Geb and Nuit. But Ra comes on his own, they say. But then some, as I say, later traditions say that he has a mother and father. Others just say he was self. There were several gods, Ptah, Thoth, and Ra, that are all self-created. They just kind of happened, which is kind of interesting. I guess the ancients weren't really sure how that happened. So that was what they said, that they created themselves, that is the energy of the universe, that is just sort of wound and spun. I always think of a quasar, with the spinning, kind of almost what is a comet kind of a thing that spins and flashes. And there he was. So that's done. In China, believe it or not, there were ceremonies to Ra. Um, they call him the Jade Emperor, but it's Ra. And they had pinwheels made of, gunpowder, like fireworks, to do that, to spin around. So they understood that very well. It was traveled to India, and later on, in post Roman times, the ceremony was done in Heliopolis to honor Ra. And then the Christians came and they stopped all those ceremonies, as they did in Greece and everywhere else, because it was not to do with Christianity. And that's okay. Everything changes. Um, but these rituals are back, and I know because I do them.
Yes, yes, you do. And you're one of the keepers of the flame for the ancient Egyptian wisdom, and we're very lucky to have you.
It is important that you know my title, which is Tepi Neteru Hem. It means I am the servant of the temple. And it means not only do I serve my high gods and goddesses, the Neteru, but I also serve all of you. As a high priest, I'm a teacher. I am a celebrant, which means I'm performing the rituals and I'm teaching them. But it also means if someone needs something, that I'm right there to pray for someone who is sick, for someone who if they're getting married, if a child is born, if there is a couple dispute, the high priest is there to act as an intermediary and to make those things work best. And that's what you have to know. I am the high priest and the founder of the Pernateru Temple. The Pernateru, per means school of or temple of the Niteru. The Niteru are the Egyptian deities, the pantheon. There are about 500 of them. I work primarily with what's called the Great Anid, which starts with Ra and Mut, Amun and his wife, and also Shu, Tefnut, Geb, and Nuit. And then you want to go down to another tier, which you have Isis, Osiris, Set, Nephthys, and Horus. And then there's another set down, and it goes almost like a pyramid. So you finish with all of them. Um, and as I say, there's 500. We don't have time to go through all that right now, but I will teach people that. And I teach you, all of you, to work with the hieroglyphs. It's not just the pretty designs on the wall, okay? Hieroglyphs are important because they are pictographs. They will be the names of the gods or goddesses or the kings or queens or your own names. If it is your own name, we work with it with a symbol called a cartouche, which is actually a magical rope. I was going to bring one, but I thought better of it. Um, to take a magical rope like this, if I may, and a reason to wear that crown, a magical rope. Your name will be in the rope, like this. That it has a little slit in it. That would be a signet, and that name then is protected in this enchanted rope, so that no one can harm you. It's kind of like pagans do, witches have a banishing ritual where they use rope also. This is a very ancient ceremonial thing, but it's in the hieroglyphs. The cartouche, that's a French word. It means, like a rope. Anyway, um, that will be there. When you're working with a god or a goddess, it's important to know that not only do you put their name in, but you have to put it in spelled correctly. You have to say it correctly, and sometimes they're very complicated names. Isis is Aset, A-S, it can be A-S-E-T or A-S-T. Forgive me. The Egyptians didn't often use vowels. They're weird. They're kind of like the Polish that way. I say that because my grandmother's city was Gdańsk in Poland, and there's only one letter, vowel, which is an A in there, and everything else is all consonants. And it's the same thing with hieroglyph. And I think also a lot of people yet have not discovered which vowel goes where, because I've been reading hieroglyphic alphabets, and many of them put, A-E-I-O-U is the same letter. And that certainly can't be true, because it's a different phraseology, it's a different way to say things. So it doesn't make sense to me. So a lot of work is being done on that too. I have a friend, his name is Bjorn Njal, or Njal Bjorn, and he is a linguist, and he's working on the language of the hieroglyph. And so when I work with somebody, I will refer them to him to learn to speak like an. I walk like an Egyptian, and this will teach you how to speak like an Egyptian.
The non-consonants are very typical of the ancient Near Eastern, what was called for Semitic languages, like Hebrew, for instance, and Phoenician. When the Phoenicians gave the Greeks their alphabet, the Greeks revolutionized that by introducing vowels. Because
Yeah, because most of the African peoples also, there's no vowels. It's just the, knock or bang or whatever, the sound. And it's done that way. But you also have to use, when you're summoning a deity, you should have the right incense, you should have the right chants. That's important. But also, you have to have the right colors. So if you put Isis, for instance, in pink, she's not going to, the energy's not going to happen. If you use, I'm wearing teal right now, peacock blue. That's one of her colors or one of Osiris's colors, but green and blue. Isis is also often called either the golden goddess or the green goddess. And those are colors that work with her. If you want to work with Anubis, you must use the metal copper. It's the metal he resonates to. People need to know these things that, and I'll be able, as I work with someone, as I'm teaching them the traditions, those are the things I will teach you. Also what woods you can use for certain stabs and things. Many of them for Osiris, for instance, would be cedar wood. Why? Because a lot of the mummy cases were made of cedar wood or cypress. Hathor also, and Neith used cypress. Hathor was once shown coming out of a cypress tree magically, and those don't really grow in Egypt. Cypress is from Lebanon, and cedars are from Lebanon. So those are things the Egyptians had to import because I don't think palm trees made mummy cases too well. And the rest of them we know they're made of stone, usually limestone or granite, or if they could get it, marble. But they didn't do until the Roman period. They didn't really have marble. They had alabaster, which is similar. So this ceremony is very important to me because I was initiated as a high priest at the Ra rising ceremony. Oh, a long time ago. I'm almost as ancient as Egypt myself. Hmm. So
well,
that
you
works that way.
wear your years well, my friend.
Oh, there must be a filter on there something, or I haven't learned to do what is that one? Snapchat. I don't do those kind of things. I'm not very good at that.
I haven't learned that either. I'm wandering around the internet as well, trying to make sense of it all.
I mean, the temple behind me is a backdrop that I found. I believe it's the temple of Horus at Edfu. I keep seeing my cat sneaking into I'm in my room and my cat keeps sneaking out into like, can I talk to all of you? You know, so bear with me because as a cat father, it's kind of, I'm keeping an eye on my child.
Let the child of Bast know that he is welcome.
Oh, he knows he's just being bad, you know. But so another important ritual tool is an athami. This is true of almost all pagan peoples. Even in Greece, at the altars, all I can think of is for Iphigenia. These were always used so that there was a sacrifice. Not always. And I'm going to say it. The Egyptians also brought to the rituals back in the day cuts of meat, impala, cow, chicken, goat, sheep, whatever they could get their hands on for that particular god or goddess. And you know what happened. The prime cuts were given to the priests and priestesses as payment for the ritual, and the sacrifice was given to the gods and goddesses, which is usually the entrails, the skin, the parts that the priests and priestesses didn't want to eat. And I'm very serious about that. I don't personally like using animal sacrifice. I think we've gone way beyond that in time, and I don't think that was something that the deities required. I think it was something that the priests and priestesses who wanted to eat required. So I'm taking that as saying don't do that. I use oils, incenses, flowers, fruit, bread, and I don't drink, so I don't use wine, but I do pomegranate juice, or I use sparkling apple cider sometimes. Different things that are for festive seasons and things. We're also entering the summer. This is the time of the high heat, even in Egypt. So we know that Ra is at his zenith, and that's why we celebrate him here at this time. When the summer goes down, we go into the time of Osiris. Osiris was murdered, they say, in autumn. And so, and the winters at the autumn equinox, there is a ritual called the Passion Play, where you see Osiris and Set and Nephthys, and the ritual. It's kind of like musical chairs. There's a bunch of people trying to get into a mummy case, and it only fits Osiris. In my case, me, and so they take that off it, and the whole thing goes on with Isis with her the labors she had, like Hercules. Isis had labors trying to find the different pieces of Osiris after his brother chopped him up. So we're similar that way. It also relates to Adonis, I would say, um, and other deities in the Greek fashion that were also sacrificed. Osiris's sacrifice gave the harvest. His body was part of the harvest.
Yeah, the dying god whose death
Exactly.
was a sacrifice. That's a very common theme in the Mediterranean also.
Exactly. So, there's that. But we won't be going into that till the autumn equinox, which of course is around the 21st till 22nd. It usually is when Libra opens in this time period. But it was when the summer solstice, and in summer solstice is not every season the same day. It goes between the 21st to the 23rd. We have, you know, as a group in this century, this 21st century, we have a problem. You know, not everybody can get to a ritual on the day of. So, like we're doing right now, we use Zoom or we use YouTube or Skype or what have you, so that we can all work together. And also, like now, the rituals will be recorded. And if you say you're working till, I don't know, Thursday at 9 o'clock, and the ritual was yesterday, Wednesday, you'll be able to practice the ritual because we were taking classes to learn how. And then you can just watch the video, or as it were, and practice along with it. Kind of like back in the day when Jack LaLanne was on. Remember Hercules?
I remember.
Everybody was doing jumping jacks in their living room at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah,
My mother used to go crazy because they're all getting ready for my father going to work and my mom cooking, and I'm doing jumping jacks with the dog because I thought that was fun, and that kept me going. And then I would run, eat my breakfast and then fly off to the bus stop to catch our junior high school bus. But I always thought that was wild. And like that, and bringing that by, not just to be funny, but we do a kind of a warm up for the ritual with a prayer and a concentration, so that before we do anything, people are more focused on what we're going to be doing. I tend to be funny, so I have to get, and become serious, and serious usually, but serious to get back into the mode, and so that people know that I mean business that day. Um, how does one start within my temple? One starts out as a student, so a questioner, and you will go from there. There are levels that go from there on. You will be brought in as an inner temple, but outer part of the temple. Then you'll be in the peristyle, the outer rim of the temple, and you'll learn about the rituals, the ceremonies, the hieroglyphs, ritual tools. This is an ankh. I mean, I have Horus. This is an amulet. You'll learn why they work, why I'm wearing scarabs, those particular things, and then also interaction with the deity, with the Neteru. You'll learn how to address them, um, who to do work with, what times of the day or night, what incenses, what oils. You don't have to do all those things. You can focus just on your own using concentration. A very good friend of mine's name is Mark Lyons. He's a good witch, and he's a wonderful teacher. And Mark said something many years ago, which I stole from him, and that a spell is just a prayer with props. And I agreed with him 100%, and I did steal that from my classes. You don't need to do all the the falderon, fiddly dee, and crazy things, but it puts you in the mood, I think. So, like, I'm wearing a robe, I have a collar on, I was wearing a crown, and I have, these amulets. So it makes me feel like when I'm putting these things on and I'm focusing and dressing, that I'm closer to my deities. If you look at the Pope, he's wearing beautiful robes, but they establish him as the Pope, a pontiff, which is a high priest, the highest priest, and he will then be in what I would call ceremonial robes, performing his rituals. It's the same thing I do. It's the same thing you do when you do your Greek rituals. It's all theater in a certain way, but it puts people in the mood.
I tend when I commune with the universe not to use props. I have over many years used props at various times. Ceremonially, when I had a more public function, I would wear my lion skin. And for those who are animal lovers, it's a faux lion skin, not taken from a real live lion. And my accoutrements. And I used to lead parades and I used to bless my town. So at that point, I would be dressed in my regalia, and I went with the theatricality of it all. But in my mind now, I communicate in silence, and sometimes I'll imagine doing particular things, and that seems to work just as well, like as you said.
People, but there are a lot of people though that do need that visual connection. And so
Mhm.
for those people, yes, I do in early parts of study, I do want robes. I do want ritual tools. I want them to think, until you get that in your mind, that you're putting the vibration, the energy that will entail and bring to you into your head to really know how that works or how that feels using the things. It's like training wheels, I would say, on a bicycle. Until you feel you're sturdy, until you can center yourself and get that energy focused, then you can keep the bicycle upright or your roller skates, or in my case, lately, a skateboard. I've gotten a new thing. And you focus and you learn more. Then you're able to say in your mind, okay, I am addressing this particular deity and I am in this particular part of the temple and I'm working with these energies and I'm sending it into this direction. Then you can do that. But like I say, like training wheels, a ritual, you know, will put you in the right space, the right frame of mind, I think.
Yes, ritual acts and repeated acts do tend to reinforce certain states of mind. I spoke very recently with my occupational therapist, and she wanted to know why instead of like a 5 count or a 10 count, I went with a 12 count when I was doing my occupational therapy exercises. So I explained to her that the 12 are the main gods in the Olympian pantheon.
Yeah.
With the 12 and counting to 12, it reminds me to give it all my all, to produce excellence, and to put all my heart and soul into what I'm doing to honor the Olympians. So she got
I
it. And so we started counting everything to 12 from that point on.
I work the same way with 9 and 3, which is also, coincidentally 12.
Hmm.
But I have, the need, which is the great 9,
9.
which are the grandchildren. And then you have the 3, which is Amun Ra, and Mut. And also, in a certain way, the goddess Ma'at. And she's another thing, another being, an energy, a thought I want to bring up today. It's very important. We've been going through chaos, I would say, since the age of Aquarius kind of pulled into this part of the galaxy, or I should say, bumped into this part of the galaxy. And there's been a lot of um, unrest, confusion, anger, murder, death, war. And that's what Aquarius apparently brings. It comes in through chaos, and we're still in the dawning. And so we're in a very chaotic state. In my traditions, that is ruled by Ma'at, the goddess of balance and truth and equilibrium and justice. And where I believe we're out of Ma'ati, which is out of sync, and I think that that's something we need to focus on. And that's another ritual that will happen probably around the summer solstice, but also later on again. The same ritual is performed at the birthdays of Isis and Osiris and Horus and Nephthys and Set, which is August 1st through August 5th. The Egyptians tend to have very long festivals. Incidentally, at the Feast of Bast, much fertility goes on. I'll be nice. And by the time we reach harvest or so, or in Egyptian, the laying to rest of Osiris into the ground or into the temple, the birth rate went up. So by May or June, you're going to have children happening in the spring equinox. It just happens. As Osiris rises, so do all those children. And Horus is born. So it's kind of a mess. But what I'm saying too is that we need to try and bring that equilibrium, that balance, that justice back into ourselves. So I'd like everybody to focus for a little while and think about, now Mot is a beautiful goddess. I have her in my hand here. If you can see her. Mot is a goddess that has feathers and wings, and she wears a red bandeau. She also has in that band a feather in her hair. It's a white ostrich plume, and it's called the feather of truth. Now, in funerary rituals, they measure the heart against the feather of truth. So let your heart be light, or something evil will eat your heart and you'll disappear. You'll disappear. Big Amit, who's an absolutely hideous representative of kind of the underworld, but really she dissolves. She is a crocodile, hippopotamus, lion, kind of squished together. She's really ugly. And she will take your energy from your, well, they use the heart as the symbol of the energy. She will take that energy and eat it. And so it disperses it into oblivion, like they do in the Rocky Horror Picture Show. They're going to shoot him and he goes into oblivion. And that's what's happening. The energy can't be destroyed. The Egyptians, of course, the ancients didn't really know that, I don't think. But so that energy goes into something else. And I often make a joke about it. You could end up as a Delco battery. Or the battery in your phone, or you're the lightning bolt that Zeus throws, or you're in a power line going zzz. So, but you're not a human anymore, or any kind of a physical being. You're not allowed to do that anymore. So let your heart be light. Try to, when you sleep, when you're going to bed at night, and I do this, sit down for a minute, think about your day. And don't, you always, Dr. Joyce Brothers and all of those old psychiatrists would say, don't go to bed angry. But it's the same thing. Don't die angry. Don't die with, or don't leave the earth with all that pent up in you, because it's going to come out in judgment. And that's true even in the Christians and the Jews, the Muslims, the Buddhists, that you're going to stand before a higher force and explain what you've done to yourself. In Egyptian, it's the negative confession. I didn't do this, I didn't do that. And the Christians have and the Jews have the 10 Commandments. I did this, I didn't do that, I did this. It's the same thing. It's exactly the same thing. You're going to denounce your negative energies and, show what you did that was good. So we've got to bring that equilibrium, that balance, that positive energy back into the whole world. Look what's going on in the Middle East, and in India, and in Russia, and the Ukraine, and even the Irish is still and now Egypt is fighting with the Palestinian. The whole thing is a mess, and we've got to fix that. And the only way we can fix it is to put things back in balance. And so I'm asking everybody, please focus on putting all of that energy back into balance. Think of it as Ma'at. Think about it as this goddess that has a scale that's putting the balance back into the world, so that we don't have too much of this or too little of that. We want balance, equilibrium. And that's, we're all human, I think. And we have within ourselves good energy, negative energy, and positive energy. And someone once said, I think, we can't have one without the other. But so, we need to make sure that this one isn't overdone and that one isn't overdone. It's like adding too much salt and not enough sugar. And we've got to get the world back into this energy. And that's kind of why I'm wearing the robes. This Eye of Horus represents protection, it represents wisdom, and it represents an acceptance that I am not the all to end all of the world. I don't believe in destiny, that that whatever I'm going to do with my life has already been written. I do believe there's a pattern, but like I was always one of those kids that colored outside the lines. So, there are no lines in Earth. There is no magic. There's no secret ingredient. There is no formula. We've got to make our own destinies, but we've got to make them good. We've got to realize that we're all in this together, and that my mother said, life is what you make it, and it is. And I followed that all my life. And my own philosophy came, believe it or not, from a Westinghouse commercial I should say, an ad in a magazine. There was a little chameleon sitting on a branch, and they took a quote from, I think it's Darwin, and it said, "The ability to adapt is the ability to survive." In other words, don't if something's not, or like they say in the agony and the ecstasy, if the wine is rotten, throw it out. We've got time now because we're all still here in this classroom. We've got time now to undo the wrong, or get us back on the right road. That's what I'm saying. We took a wrong turn in Albuquerque, as my favorite rabbit says. So Bugs Bunny. So we have to try to get back on that road because
My beliefs are very similar. And I practice the judgment randomly throughout the day. I let my mind bring me to points in my life. I experience them with a new perspective, and if I've done wrong or my perspective and my behavior was not where it should have been, I relive the incident as it should be, and I apologize to any that I may have hurt along the way. Uh,
you know me well, and I do that. If I feel that I've offended someone, or I feel that I've done something off kilter, I'm the first one to say I will own what I've done wrong, and it doesn't erase it, but it addresses it. It's
right.
saying, okay, you looked at it. You wanted to make a croissant and you ended up with a bagel. So this you've got to figure out what you did wrong and undo it if you can, or just move forward. We can't beat ourselves over the head with the past. The past is done.
No, we can't. And also, if you once you start applying that to yourself and you start letting go of a lot of the self-blame and the beating yourself up, you realize that other people too, for the most part, try to do their best with who they are and what they know at any given point in time. So you learn to cut other people lots of slack because they're going through this experience as well as you. And the fact that the experiences are universal is reflected in every song and every piece of art and every piece of entertainment that we watch.
We are an experiment. We're in a classroom,
Hmm.
and it's not just a classroom for us, it's for the universe. And every single one of us is like a giant game piece on a chessboard. If you remember back to our fantastic Jason and the Argonauts, you have Zeus and Hera working with what looks like a chessboard. And then also later on in Clash of the Titans, they've got Lawrence, my hero, Laurence Olivier, is moving the chessboard again with Zeus and Hera. And one of the pieces, of course, is Perseus, and how they change things. Perseus, being a son of one of the sons of Zeus, is much more favored than poor Jason, who was, a favor of Hera. So of course Zeus was going to make life miserable for him. But that's the whole thing. That we don't see them as pushing the game board, as it were. But I do believe that the higher powers, my deity, whose name is Num, is a gigantic man with a ram's head, which I believe is a mask. And he's a potter, and he's putting the plot of your life on this tablet. And sometimes he makes a mistake. Sometimes, there's something on his stylus, his finger, it's not quite carving the way it should be carving. And so you've got to correct that because it doesn't say, made in Japan on it anymore. We need to perfect things ourselves. Erete, you say, I think in the Greek. No? That word, I might be pronouncing it wrong because my Greek is non-existent, but I think it's erete.
Areti.
Arete, okay. I
It's
was
usually
almost there.
translated as virtue, but it actually means personal excellence.
That's what I thought. And there's a goddess, Ereto.
Yeah, Areti, she's a goddess, and
Is she a
her
goddess or a nymph? Uh, um,
she's
a muse. Is she a muse?
I don't believe she's a muse. I believe she's a goddess, but she's not one of the better known goddesses. And accompanying
No.
her and acting as counterpart is Kakia, which is usually translated as vice, but it means like mean-spiritedness, ill intent. It means that more than it means vice.
Is that where you got the word cocky from? I
Maybe.
mean, it sounds like she's giving the world cocky.
She might very well be. Her brother was Cacus, who
Oh
was
dear.
the
No, 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 no more. No more.
a demon in
That
Rome who stole the cattle of Geryon from Hercules and of Thebes, and he had to spend a year rounding them all up, and he fought Cacus in a giant battle. That's a very little known myth where the Theban Hercules is credited with being the founder of the Ara Maxima, which was the cattle market that survived well into historical times.
Well, that's kind of why Horus marries Hathor. Hathor has the ears and the horns of a cow. And sometimes she is a cow, sometimes she's a woman with a cow's head, and sometimes she's a woman with cow's ears and cow's horns. And I think spots once in a while. But he did that to maintain the fertility of the land, because cows make fertilizer, I'll be nice. And also they were cows were productive and they brought energy back and they're also very pleasant creatures. So he married her. He was a falcon head after all. So I don't know what children look like. They were very, some of them had cow heads, some of them had hawk heads, some of them had a head of an ape. There's
Well,
another one that,
The Apis bull inspired the Greek tales of the Minotaur.
oh, of course it did, you know. And before him though comes his I guess she's his grand aunt, who's Hathor. She's the first cow goddess in Egypt anyway. And but in the meantime, though that energy, I always look at Horus as Hercules. I find that that's true because Horus goes through trials also. He has to avenge his father, and then he rules Egypt. He's also like Conan because he rules Egypt and he doesn't want to be a ruler. He wants to be a wanderer, and so did Hercules, and so did Conan. They didn't want to be rulers. Hercules didn't like the idea of being a king. He wanted to be just go about about the countryside and be a hero and help people. Horus felt the same way, and in that way, they're also like Thor, because Thor also did those kind of things. You see so similarities. When you're going to celebrate Horus, you also use a solar ritual, but the fruit that they use came from a far-off place called Valencia, Greece, actually Mexico, Spain. Oranges. They found oranges, and it's very strange, but only in certain tombs where priests of Horus and some of the other solar gods will you find oranges. I mean, they're thousands of years old, so they're all, like a rock now. But it was discovered they didn't know what they were for a long time. Now, through KMT magazine, I think it is, that I get on Instagram, they found that those were oranges. And that was kind of neat because I always knew one of his colors was orange. Like Osiris is green, Set is also reds and oranges. He's fire, So, and as I said in the early part of this session, that those colors are important. Priests and priestesses wore robes or sashes that were of those colors to correctly identify them with the deity. And when there were huge meetings at the gigantic temple in Thebes, which is Luxor, um, everyone would wear these bands so that they'd know who was who.
I
And we
once
still
read
do.
a tale. I don't know how accurate it was, but it made sense at the time that the oranges, which in Greece are called portokaya,
Oh, I know that.
are
You know why I know that.
what inspired the tales of the golden apples of the Hesperides. And the country Portugal, which sounds a lot like portocali,
Yeah.
probably the golden apples of the Hesperides were in or near Portugal.
We know Portacallis married Miller. I had to. I couldn't help it. We are all apples or oranges, but we are all fruit.
There you go.
But I'm sorry, that's one of my favorite funny movies of all times. Um, to get serious, and I will try to do that. We will end the year also with the burial, funerary burial of Osiris, and that is done at what we call Yule, which is the Christian, the pagan Christmas area, and also the pagans' Yule. That was the end of the winter, the beginning of the winter, and the time of mourning and bringing about, messages to the dead and messages from the dead as well. People would bring little pieces of paper, shards of paper, and they would bring them to the tomb and say, Uncle Charlie, can you check things out for us in this particular region of the netherworld and help us with this, with crops, with women troubles, with a baby that's being born, or a war, famine, what have you. So they were asking their ancestors, and so, considering they consider Osiris, they're all of their ancestor, that was put at the temple, and that's in Abydos. It's the temple of Osiris, and that was the end. That's the end of the year, and then they come back in spring with Horus, his son, and that's usually in the spring equinox.
So these myths that many people consider fantastical are actually tied to very real world things and are important in the lives of everyday people.
I think so, yes. And they're still important now. You may not want to do them in a certain way. Like I create Ushabtis, the little spirit statues. I have one here, little gold guy. But now when I create them, they may have a briefcase. He might have a cell phone. He might have a notebook with him. He might have a PC with him, so that you can take his energies and put him in the modern world. Instead of having I don't know, a sickle or a staff or a bell or an ankh, I try to make my ushabtis fit this time of the, because they're not just for funerary purposes. They were there to take little spiritual energy forms, take a piece of your spirit and move it to different things. We talked about yesterday about bilocation.
Hmm.
And that's what it is. You're taking a bit of your own energy and moving it around. So someone will say, like they said to you, you were at that party. If you weren't, but you were. And the famous one of me, where I was walking around Nassau Community College and I was home in bed with 102 fever. But they saw me on the green, they saw me walking, and they described how I was dressed. And it was kind of weird. I mean, I didn't have pajamas on, obviously, but I was laying in bed and I had on shorts and a t-shirt. My slippers were next to the bed, and it was summer, so people were saying, "Oh, that's what he looked like." And I was dressed as I am dressed, or I was dressed. Um, and I was thinking about school, but of course I was in bed, very sick.
Yes, in my incident with bilocation, I wanted to go, but I couldn't go, and yet I have memories of going as well as not going. And half the people that I talked to about it later, half of them remembered me there and they had the exact same memories that I had. And then the other half was, oh, you couldn't make it. You wanted to, you wanted to come. So I believe that the world changes around us sometimes, and the diverse timelines meet and part in various ways, and that the details of the past are subject to change, as well as the details of the present and details of the future.
Oh, I agree completely. Again, another small incident. I was in my grandparents' place in Stuart, Florida, and I was laying in a hammock. I was enjoying myself. It was summer, it was my vacation. And my best friend's sister, Lisa, said that I was a complete snob, that I'd walked through the gate, their backyard gate, and I didn't say hello to her. And I didn't even knock on the door. I just walked back out of the gate. I was thinking about them, but I knew I was in Stewart laying in a hammock. So I don't know, and that was kind of weird. And I knew what day she was saying, and I knew where I was. But there, she described again what I was wearing. And she said I just kind of looked like I was somewhere else, because honestly, I was, and it's an interesting thing. And that was happening in the temples where people would say, we saw you working. Maybe she was a miller and she was making bread or dough or something. And they'd see her standing at the altar with her offering. And so, I think those people were able to project their energies in two different places.
And unfortunately, our conversation time is coming to an end for today, but this is a topic I'm sure we will continue, and we should focus on it during one of your episodes or one of my episodes.
Certainly.
Now, how can people connect with you, contact you, and start experiencing some of the things that you're sharing as High Priest of a Kemetic Pernateru Temple?
What I would like you to do, you can either contact me on Michael K. Waterman, which is my main page on Facebook, or you can reach me at the Teru Temple, either in Facebook or Instagram. You can get me at my service, my work, which is Phono Wizard. People know that I'm a professional medium and psychic and paranormalist. And you can get me at the Perniteru, or I should say Phono Wizard. That's in both, um, again, Facebook or Instagram. You can get me by, if you want to use an email, mkwaterman at icloud.com. If you're a telephone person, I'm an open door. You can call me at 516-650-3691. Although that's a New York number, I am still using it. I've had it for almost 27 years. I can't give it up now. And you can reach me through Hercules if you wish.
And you've also started publishing your works, and
Yes,
you
yes.
appeared in a couple of books, and you're going to appear in a few more, and you're working on volumes of new material. So that is fantastic, and I'm looking forward to reading all of it. How can people access the writings that have been published and are available?
Well, those are through Tim Schwartz that you can get. There's one that I don't know the name of it yet, is going to be about ghosts. And you can also get one called Weird Time, which you're also in as well.
Yeah.
That's a Tim Schwartz book. My other book, which is just about finished now, is called The Book of Setna Khamuast. It is my pagans will like. It's called a grimoire. It's a book of my spells, rituals, ceremonies, ceremonial objects, and kind of how to do all the things that we were talking about tonight. And it's also going to bring you toward how I do initiations and how I teach. And those things you can also, by reaching me through the mediums I just mentioned, you can find out how to become a member of my temple. Um, I'm really much looking forward to doing that with all of you.
And Weird Times were published by Zontar Press, and it's very easily available through Amazon.
My other book, people that are involved with, it's either going to be Llewellyn or I'm told Samuel Weisers. I don't know if Samuel Weisers will do it. They're in trouble right now, and Llewellyn is not. So I'm hoping that Llewellyn will take my book.
The Llewellyn folks are wonderful. I've had a relationship with them on and off for nearly half a century, and they are fantastic people. And some of them I've been working with for years. So that'd be a great thing.
Okay, well, I'm going to wish you all an excellent night. This has been amazing working with you, of course, as always. And I wish you life, health, and prosperity and blessings.
And I wish you the same. Thank you, my friend, and I look forward to our next conversation. And thanks to all of you who have joined us. Until next time, I wish you joyous journeys and amazing adventures. Good night from all of us. Thank you again, Setna.
Most welcome. Blessings all, and have a great evening.